was actually #1 overall for a little bit. So his solo queue has been up. We wondered, why is Haru on this lineup? He didn't look good on CJ, but Kramer and a lot of other people didn't look good on CJ last year. And so far, so good for Haru.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe having the guidance of a veteran such as Ambition could help assist him in improving, but you don't really want the guidance of Ambition at this point. He's been having a bit of a rough time. I'm sure he's going to bounce back. Just a couple rough games to start things off. And Afreeca, I mean, granted, they look better than we really could have ever anticipated them to be. They had that high ceiling, but they're really living up to it. But right into the pick and ban here. Malzahar, Varus taken away by Samsung. Don't want that in the hands of Kramer.
No, what they're doing here is they want to ban Varus and first pick Ashe is my first instinct, because it feels like the bans can be auto-filled on the side of Afreeca. They have to ban LeBlanc last, you'd imagine. Crown, Samsung have been banning LeBlanc on blue and red side, so Crown has played it before. It would have been a bit crazy to overlook it, but to me, you ban Varus and first pick Ashe to at least get the Ashe, which has been very high priority. Jhin is out there as well. That'll probably be the answer. And yeah, the one you see Varus in the first round when they clearly can play Varus, it's about taking Ashe first round, because this will basically, until the foreseeable future, be the 3 red side bans in every series.
Yeah. Well, we see those off the board. Jace was something that was banned in the first round of that first game. It's going to be a very swift lock-in here from Marin. So, still more aggression that will be coming out of the top lane. Could always see it in mid, but highly unlikely. We'll see what Afreeca wants to do with the rest of this draft. Elise was also removed by Samsung in the second round, but oh boy, the hover over the Ziggs. They wouldn't have the Malzahar to go with it this time around, but they're going to go ahead and take it. They saw how well this played out for Bang just yesterday, so Afreeca Freecs going to try their hand at it as well.
I think Afreeca are sticking with lane dominance. Jace, especially in top lane, has almost no bad matchups. Even the Poppy, where Poppy can get to a good spot. There are item builds you can go as Jace to beat Poppy, even if the Poppy's able to stack full armor. Ziggs and basically any support with CC or lane presence, basically any support. You could stick anything in there and it'll do fine. Ziggs has great laning presence, even if it's Ashe Zyra, very famous duo lane that Cloud9 popularized back in 2013 summer when they first debuted. Basically any support will do just fine here, so I think Afreeca's just staying where they were. Win lane, win game. Their snowball play was immaculate in game 1, so keep it up.
Yep. And it's going to be Zyra here for Court JJ. Will get his hands on that as it was banned away in the first game.
Playing with fire.
Uwe will go ahead and lock in the Maokai yet again.
Now, Jace will, of course, do well in lane against Maokai. We saw that matchup yesterday. Outside chance, you flex the Jace to mid and go for the cannon again. That's also an option. Kuro has played mid lane Jace before. So a lot of flexibility here. I think you want to definitely round this out with a support pick. Karma is an option that's available. Doesn't do wonderfully against Zyra. Misfortune is the support counter pick, and they keep up the story. They want to focus on lane. Counter pick's a bit of a weird word. We have seen Misfortune lanes lose to Zyra, but she's very strong against the plans, and Zyra's so oppressive that Misfortune's one of the safer picks, and also can do very, very well in terms of trades in lane.
Yeah. Going to be a lot of armor shred coming through as well with that Black Cleaver. But on the bullet time, Jace more than likely going to pick up a Black Cleaver himself. But haven't seen the jungles come out quite yet, and that's actually going to be a ban to start things off for the second round for Afreeca. Kha'Zix taken away. Wasn't sure if that's something Spirit wanted to pick up himself. Seemed really comfortable on that Olaf. Could always revisit that. But Rek'Sai still on the board as well as the Lee Sin. And Elise is also going to get banned away.
Yeah, the jungle pool can actually get pretty damn pinched here. Rengar was in the first round of bans as expected. Lee Sin is obviously the jungler that we might be surprised has been overlooked, but so far hasn't been considered. On the red side, they are clearly going to be looking for a solo laner and also the jungler. And they have the first pick on red side, so they're just trying to pinch it further and maybe just take Olaf with no other jungler that can really hope to handle it. I think if you're Samsung, you have to leave Rek'Sai up and kind of accept that it's probably going to be Olaf versus Rek'Sai as the inevitable jungle matchup.
Yeah. Otherwise, both of those taken away from you, kind of just stuck with the Hecarim at that point, but they're actually going to ban the Olaf. So this could just be Rek'Sai snatched up for Spirit unless he wants to play around with something new. Still does have the Ghost on the Summoner Icon hover, but you can see the Rek'Sai coming through, and it would make sense to just go ahead and lock this in.
And now we get to know more about Haru, because The easy option here was to ignore one of Olaf and Rek'Sai and just deal with the Olaf versus Rek'Sai matchup. Now you have to think of the AD carry junglers. Something like a Graves or Kindred starts to become options that kind of fit in this draft. Speaking of fitting into drafts, they have a pick comp, and Taliyah is so powerful with pick comps. Make a lot of sense. Crown, I've said it a couple of times already this season, was the one that brought back Taliyah from the dead. No one talking about Taliyah. Played it at Gyeonggi. Now every mid laner, I check everyone's profile, they've played at least 5 to 10 games of Taliyah. So predictably it's the pick, but AD carry junglers are basically all that's left. It's either Hecarim or one of Graves and Kindred as realistic jungle choices. And look, Graves is very, very safe, but they're forced into Graves with the 5 jungle bans of the 10.
Yep, not going to see a Shyvana again, it would appear, but oh boy. That very well could be a Jace flexed into the mid lane. Rumble has made it through, and Marin, you've talked about it, be very comfortable running Rumble into the Maokai matchup in top lane, but oh, it's going to be that flip over to the Kennen at the last second. So will it be the AD build? Will it be the AP build? Marin, he has the freedom to keep things ambiguous for now.
But then you'd have to play that game, Achilles, of winning lanes, and it's looking pretty good for Afreeca Freecs. We know exactly how top goes, but can Afreeca set up the same inevitable domination in top lane they did in the previous game? It was much more about stopping ambition from ever moving to that side of the jungle than necessarily about the matchup. The matchup is great for Kennen, but can be exploited by the jungler. Different jungler now in Haru, but Samsung need to be a lot more conservative about their early game. Ensure that they don't give the free opportunity for Afreeca to run away with the game by playing through Marin's lane.
We'll see how they're going to synergize. They have that teleport from the Maokai. They have the Weaver's Wall from Taliyah, so they can both get across the map relatively quickly. If they can lock off somebody, they can take them out. Kramer, of course, will have that satchel charge to try to create some distance. I don't think you can jump over the Weaver's Wall with that. Might be a little too thick.
Might be able to, actually, with the right timing. Small thing that we actually have on our screens that isn't shown on screen is that Jace did not take teleport. Went Ignite mid lane on Jace against the Taliyah.
Really bold.
I was going to say, well, get Ashe to level 6. Everyone shows up and bot so much CC get kills, but they're not interested in letting Taliyah roam. They're looking to kill this Taliyah and stop the globals from being as big an impact.
Well, seems like Kuro's gotten a little bloodthirsty since leaving the Rocks Tigers. And I have to say, I'm a pretty big fan of it. I'm a pretty big fan of this draft overall, especially from the side of Afreeca Freecs, bringing out the Ziggs yet again. Jace in the mid lane, and then Kennen from Marin. I think he's going to go back to that on-hit 80 build, but let's go ahead and find out as we load onto the Rift for Game 2. Afreeca Freecs, can they close it out here with a 2-0, or will Samsung strike back? Let's find out.
You know what I can see, Achilles?
What's that?
There's a lot of Afreeca fans now.
I mean, you can hear it. You don't even have to see it.
I mean, the Afreeca Freecs were a very enigmatic and fun team to follow last year, but finished
They
fifth
never
twice.
had this level of fandom last year.
And they didn't have this roster last year. They didn't have this superstar names. Specifically, Marin and Spirit had a lot of fans. Marin was one of the most popular players in Korea when he was here. A lot of people look up to him with his age, the fact that he'd been through his military service. A lot of the shot caller on SK Telecom, a lot of admirable traits about Marin. And this team, it took Rocks Tigers a long time to build up a fan group, and there were a lot more unheralded names on that team. It's taken no time at all for Afreeca to have a lot of fans.
No, it hasn't taken any time at all for Marin to roam into the enemy jungle.
He's just being a dick. That's what he's doing.
Yep, pretty much.
A huge jerk.
Well, looks like he's going to try to dissuade Haru from taking the blue buff. Or does have that smite, so he's going to be able to snatch it up. But Marin already whittling down Cuvée to about half HP. You can see some fan-drawn signs. We got a couple out there in the audience. Hopefully we highlight some of the others.
That was a chibi Marin right there, in case you were wondering.
But, yeah, Marin just flexing quite a lot in this matchup. You can see starting with the call this time. Not even going to be going for the Doran's Blade. Just wants to go straight for that big payoff.
And you know, you can actually attest to this, Achilleos. For the longest time, the last year, when people ask me what I play in solo queue, I'm like, Kennen with Cull. Because, hey, it's Kennen. He's already great in lane. Why not go for Cull if you're against an easy matchup like the Maokai? Get the payoff, and the fact that you don't have 60 health shouldn't matter, especially if, like in Game 1, you ensure that the jungler's never there. The jungler's never there, why not go Cull?
Yeah, you're saying that you're also a dick, Papa Smithy.
That's true.
Yeah.
You know this very well.
See, I'm very familiar with it, but Haru actually looking for an invasion of his own. Doesn't have the smite up yet. See when he wants to show his face. And he might just do it at all. See the Prey Seeker comes out. Spirit knows that he's there. So Haru won't be able to gain anything for his time spent.
Cube's getting 2015 flashbacks this series.
I was about to say, Cube is, like, he's got to be wondering if he slipped into a time machine at some point on his way to the studio.
To be fair, Marin left and Cube got better. And then the more time that Marin was gone, the better Cube got. And now Marin's back and he's turned into a pumpkin again.
So Marin is to Cube as Faker is to Kuro. Oh, there we go.
That's a really good sign.
That's some anime-looking drawings right there.
I mean, the Rocks Tigers had so many great drawings of them, so imagine, yeah, their fans have largely splintered, you'd have to imagine, with all the talent going to different teams, and their fans are still around.
Yep. He's got a, I mean, you know, he's not Smeb, he's not Peanut, but still.
I don't think he's Gorilla or Prey either.
That's true. But still, there are some Kuro fans out there.
There's probably more Kuro fans than Cry fans, at least.
I would hope so for his
mid
sake.
lane.
But yeah, mid lane, Crown gonna flash to the side. Nice seismic shove, Spirit!
What an outplay!
It's knocked right into the turret. Crown having a much better early game than the first time around. Gets the solo kill in a 1v2. Styles on Spirit and whittles down Curl simultaneously. I hope we get a replay of that because that was just gorgeous play from Crown.
Sick outplay from Crown. He understood the limits of his champion. When he got flashed on, he wasn't going to go down. Early buffered the seismic shove. Got it on and doesn't take too many turret shots. Takes someone down at level 4. Spirit's made to look like a fool. Nice play from Crown and a big confidence boost. And speaking of confidence, punishing Marin would really boost the sales of Samsung.
Yep. Now Marin gonna get jumped onto his advance coming through. Big burst of damage from the end of the line. He's gonna fall. Cuvée picking that one up with the help of Haru. Samsung, here we go, looking alive and well in game 2.
And this time it's Samsung using their information. They just see Spirit suicide in the mid lane. They realize, okay, they're not going to be that same texture of the game where no one can visit top lane. Nice pathing to top. Marin, predictably, has always played best when overextended in the top lane. Either gets punished or punishes the opponent. And we've seen one from the first camp, and now we're starting to see one from the other camp.
Yep. Cuvée, he's going to be happy to go with the same build. Marin looks like it will be similar to Game 1. It has that null magic mantle, so we'll be working toward that wit's end yet again.
Camp Marin time.
Yeah, Haru is waiting up top. Just bait Marin and get him to use that lightning rush.
Was he spotted there? I guess not.
Oh, no, if he hugs the wall well enough, Marin did dip back. It's going to be the twisted advance. Haru says, hello, I'm here. Have a red buff to slow you up, but Marin flashes away.
Well.
Slow him up. Oh, they're going to flash right over the wall. They really take him out. Q from the Maokai, not going to connect, but it doesn't matter. Haru picks up the kill. 3 on the board already for Samsung.
And Marin smiles because he respects what Haru tried there. Everyone who has tried to flash that fat wall knows how hard it is to pull it off. But that's the sign of someone who's played a lot of solo queue, that is right at the top of Challenger, took the risk, could have been made to look like a fool, instead looks like a genius. And now Afreeca being surgically taken down by Samsung Galaxy.
What a start to this game. 1,000 gold in the lead is Samsung. 3 kills up. And Marin already dying twice. Complete opposite of the performance from Afreeca Freecs in game 1. And, you know, honestly, maybe Haru is just the lucky charm for this Samsung roster at the moment.
Spirit being a bit silly was also another lucky charm that they gleefully accepted in this particular game, but you gotta give credit where credit's due. Haru has been really good in now the 3rd game that he's played so far on this roster. We'll have to wait and see if there's ever a time when he actually displaces ambition for the starting roster. But when it comes to being a blue side player and then increasingly playing on the red side when they go into an inevitable 3rd game, a lot to like about Haru in 2017. That's not something I expected to say.
No, not at all after everything that happened just last year. And now Crown with that blue buff. It's going to be A hell of a nuisance up against Kuro, just continuously throwing out those threaded volleys, already on a pretty short cooldown. Now he has the mana sustain and that additional CDR to just really nail it home.
And when win lane win game goes wrong, it goes really wrong, Achilles. So the issue here is that it's very hard for Marin to have the same pressure in lane because he's been ganked so many times. Lanes that perhaps should have gone even are now winning lanes, and when you win straight up 1v1 or straight up 2v2 with globals, quickly those problems will spoil over into what should be a really good lane for Afreeca in the bot lane as well. As you can see Crown coming down, these global champions winning lane can really just turn a game super early. We might see the same sort of snowball we saw from Afreeca in Game 1, from Samsung in Game 2.
Yeah, and I mean, they have an additional tool on the map available to them to help with that, and that's the Infernal Drake. We saw Mountain starting things off. Samsung was able to take that, but then lost out the following Drakes. But this position right now, playing for the blue side, they could very well get in onto that Infernal Drake. There's no vision in the river right now. Haru could just dash right over the wall into the back line, into the back of the pit rather, and take that out solo. And that would really help start stacking the advantages up for Samsung even more. Crown has rotated down to the bottom side of the map, maybe looking for a Weaver's Wall play, but a dive with an Ashe, Zyra, and Talia definitely ill-advised, so they will go ahead and peel back.
At the arrow, it is pinged level 6 there from Rule. That's why Crown started his roam a little bit earlier. See if they could go for something exactly as the level 6 was pinged from the Ashe. Smart to back away. He was walking up. It was an emergency, it was an armor purchase here with the arm guard first from Talia, so no Mana Stain, no Morella Nomicon. We've seen a few Talia builds. Most interesting one is the one that Fly first used in that series against Longzhu, which was rushing the Hextech GLP 800, which was not a build I've seen on Talia previously. But Crown, much more known for his more traditional builds, so I'm sure it's going to be Rylai's, maybe even an Abyssal Scepter if we see any true damage start to come through from Kramer, I guess, specifically, who is the chosen AP carry this game.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about mad scientists on the Afreeca Freecs squad. I'm going to hold that thought for JJ flashing away. Is able to make it out. But yeah, you talk about mad scientists on the side of Afreeca Freecs. Fly is probably the maddest of all the scientists in TLCK.
I mean, he didn't build Wit's End on Lucian, so Kramer is also right up the top.
That's true. As far as AD carries go, Kramer is probably the one. I mean, when he was in the LMS, something that he would build, Black Cleaver on Ezreal was a big one.
I mean, Black Cleaver was pretty busted at that time, though.
Sure. But, it's still just an odd one to
Sure,
think about.
I mean, it's definitely not normal, but
no one else was doing it. Let's just put it that way.
it's always interesting when that happens, because you wonder, is it because you're the smart guy and everyone else is dumb, or is it the Occam's razor situation there?
It's got to be one or the other.
Yep.
There's not usually any in-between on that.
So hard for Afreeca to really make the sort of pressure plays they want with the threat of that Weaver's Wall still up. Maokai teleport as well. Profiting from their early pressure plays and their smart play in the early game. It will be that first Drake as maybe a bonus misfortune too.
Yeah, Tucson, he's cut off. He's got a flash over the wall. Get himself out to safety, and that will be the Infernal Drake going over to Samsung right at about 11 minutes.
The thing that shows you how this game is different is in the CS in top lane. Actually a CS advantage for the Maokai compared to being 30 to 40 CS behind in game 1.
Cuvée, he has figured out how to go back, go forward in time. He got Back to the Future into the present. Now 3-0 still on the board here for Samsung.
Should have saved that for when they had a 9,000 gold. And you could have said it was over 9,000.
What does that have to do with Back to the Future?
Isn't that Back to the Future?
Oh, that's Dragon Ball Z.
Really? Oh, that is Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, that's.
There's another
88 miles per hour.
I'm just failing my references today. Doa somewhere is unhappy.
God, it's gonna be a long season of this, huh? It's all right. I will just sit you down one day and I will show you all of the movies, and then you'll catch every reference, Papa. It's okay. We're here for you.
I refuse to watch any movies.
So weird. Watch any TV show, but you won't watch any movies.
Mostly good TV shows, but I won't presume to watch only good TV shows.
I just don't understand it. TV shows are such a larger investment compared to movies. Saving Private Ryan, yeah, it's a long movie. It's about 2.5 hours, something like that long, but you still have never seen it. It's one of the greatest war movies ever made.
No comment.
You can't have one. You haven't seen it.
Fair.
You're not allowed to comment. Looks like Afreeca helped to slow things down a little bit here. Don't want to get caught out anymore. So Haru hasn't been able to pull off any more of those sneaky brush ganks up into the top lane.
Still, we do have that situation where the implied gold lead is larger for Samsung, because again, they are against very much a win lane, win game comp from the side of Afreeca. So while it only says 1,300 gold, they are very comfortably ahead here as their scaling is looking good. Yeah,
and Ruler's coming out on top pretty heavy-handedly with a CS lead over Kramer on the Ziggs. So he had to go for the Sorcerer Shoes very early on, just the last chapter, and then double Doran's Ring. So, not the best build that you really want in the bottom lane. I mean, granted, a lot of mana sustain, so you can keep throwing out bombs, but it hasn't been helping him get those last hits. 20 CS down under Ruler at the moment.
It's also respecting all the globals we spoke about. Every time the Ash Arrow is not on cooldown, many different other abilities can propel people like Crown and Cuvee to the bot lane, so have to be a lot more conservative with your laning phase as Ziggs, misfortune as you might rather want to be.
Crown also opting to work towards that Morello Nomicon. Didn't want to pursue any deeper into that Zonia's Hourglass build with a Seeker's Arm card, so he'll have that one for later. Cuvee gonna go up against Marin, has that Maelstrom thrown down, gets a bit of damage in onto the cannon. So feeling much more comfortable here the second time around.
I'm just happy to continue the laning phases, start to hit their core items. I know the pressure's on Afreeca to make the moves, but after being foiled so many times in the early game, they seem at kind of a loss as to what to do. So Samsung get the waves where they want them. They already have an Infernal Drake to show for their early game, and although they're spotted out, 4 men down bot.
Yep, this is going to push them out and away from the turret. Could open up for Samsung to maybe get some damage on it, but the roam down of Kuro and Spirit. Samsung going to go ahead and back off. Don't want to overstep their bounds and give away this advantage. Meanwhile, Cuvee, he's been on a whale of a time up in this top lane, just steadily junking down Marin. As that Sap Magic passive, just make sure that he is fully sustained.
Hit both his item timings early. Ninja Tabi to deal with the auto attacks, and then starting to build the magic resist as well for the magic damage side of Kennen's offense. So suddenly Kennen's losing those trades, as I hypothesized would happen in game 1.
Oh, Kuro, there is a minion in front of you. He's gonna jump forward though, has the to the skies, hits the E. Or not for that exhaust, might have actually come up with the kill. Had the ignite as well. So almost certainly would have had it, and that's gonna send Crown packing back to the base.
Actually a pretty decent back timer for Crown though, with the second Infernal Drake coming soon as top lane.
Oh boy, yet again, here we go. Rush gank coming through. Marin is able to make it out. Can't quite get the kill, but they get the flash away from him. Cuvee had to burn his, but this gives them some alone time with that turret. And they should be able to get some serious damage in, if not knock it down. Marin might just have to teleport back into lane, try to defend this, but even then, it's looking like that might be suicidal. So this could just be first brick going over to Samsung.
Yeah, even with a Ziggs, because it's such a lead in top lane and also Crown to relieve pressure, I think it has to be Samsung start, and they're going to look for a fight as well.
Yeah, Crown coming in, hops off, throws out the wall Spirit. He's able to make his way out. The seismic shove stops Kramer in midair. Tries to jump out with the satchel charge, but cannot do it. He goes down. Another beautiful play by Crown.
And we always call Crown a mastery-focused mid laner. He makes his champions do more damage, achieve more things than other mid laners can do. We've seen his Victor time and time again, even on the world stage. His Talia, the prediction on the seismic shove was cool to see. It got the job done, and things just go from bad to worse for Afreeca Freecs.
That it does. 2 turrets taken out top lane for the first break, the bottom to follow up on that kill. Kuro was almost able to get the mid-tier 1. But Afreeca Freecs, they are in such a poor position at the moment, and now a second Infernal Drake has spawned, and you just have to think that Samsung are going to be able to snatch this up fairly easily. Spirit hovering around his Raptors, won't be able to contest, and that is going to be quite a bit of additional AD AP coming through for Samsung, and I believe that was a third Infernal Drake to follow.
And you just think of a different game where win lane win game actually panned out, and you could have got 3 Infernal Drakes and closed the game if you're Afreeca.
Oh boy, oh Crown, he finds Spirit, but Kuro hits him with a really massive shock blast, tries to get out of there, flashes away, but Kuro's with the chase, comes up with the kill. Now QV in a bad spot, Marin dashing forward, going to be looking for the stun. He'll be able to find it with the slicing Maelstrom. One more hit, he's got it. 2 kills finally picked up for Afreeca Freecs. They put themselves on the board. And Samsung, bit of a miss by Crown. He's been really showing off on this Taliyah, but maybe got a little bit complacent going in on Spirit in the river.
I mean, just consider what they got in the last 30 seconds. 2 kills, including a solo kill from Marin, executing the mid lane turret after the roam from Ziggs, and stealing away the enemy blue. This game should have been decided by those 2 Infernal Drakes, but suddenly, Afreeca have been thrown a lifeline because Samsung were a bit disrespectful about their play after they'd done so well.
Yeah, and this is how good teams throw games. So Samsung going to have to reel it back in. Just about 1,000 gold in the lead over Afreeca, and honestly, you would think it'd be much more.
I mean, Crown thought he'd caught out Spirit in the mid lane, specifically because Kuro was out of mana, and he predicted that he'd be recalling. Didn't matter if he was out of mana, it was enough for a single to the skies, and QV and Marin have been tussling for the longest time. This time QV thought he had the Weaver's War coming, thought he had Taliyah roaming first. Things changed quickly for the Taliyah, changed quickly for QV as well, and maybe will change quickly for Samsung.
Yep. Still, that double Infernal Drake's going to be really crucial for them, and Kuro gets pushed back in, and Crown just rips right through him with the threaded volley and the help of Ruler.
All right, Afreeca Freecs, you need to start respecting that seismic shove. Crown hasn't missed any of them so far.
Oh dear. Well, so far, Susin is the only one that has not died on the side of Afreeca Freecs.
And he's the support misfortune.
Pretty safe on the support. And you would wholeheartedly think that he would be the one to actually have more deaths than anybody else. But not going to be the case here. Marin,
this will be interesting.
Waiting in the brush. He doesn't have the slicing Maelstrom up yet, I don't think. Looks like it's still a couple seconds off. So kill pressure, not necessarily there. Also doesn't have the flash to really close the distance onto Crown. So he'll just be clearing out this wave. The Hurricane has been completed alongside that Wit's End. So plenty of wave clear for the Kennen.
And because there's no teleport on the Maokai, they are just sending Taliyah with her semi-global to answer Kennen with teleport. So it's far enough ahead that it's going to be swapping CS between the two, which is pretty happy, honestly, for the Taliyah.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, even if Crown had stuck around in lane, Marin just wouldn't be able to teleport. He would have to peel back before he could use it because the seismic shove would just interrupt him. But looks like this will be Crown roaming back down. Ruler takes a big hit to the face from that shock blast. Kuro, the item's still coming through, almost has the Black Lever completed. But Ruler definitely going to have to be a bit more careful. He is a very squishy Ashe.
Feels like the Jace and Misfortune are kind of only really shredding for each other. There's some physical damage from Marin, but not a lot. Usually there's an AD carry to profit from the hyperdrive, you know, just basically instantly refreshing all the Black Cleaver stacks from a Jace.
Oh, Sheriff comes through, can't quite find Tucson. He still takes a bunch of damage. And now Crown duking it out with Marin. That's the bomb coming through, won't be able to connect, and Marin just comes up with the solo kill.
Second solo kill, now solo killed both solo laners. Marin will not be denied this series debut for Afreeca victory, and a double MVP 2-0 for Afreeca Freecs would be a story in and of itself for Marin's career.
Yeah, and this is just an all too familiar feeling for most of the people on the side of Samsung's roster that have been around in 2015, which I guess isn't most of Samsung's roster. So let's just throw that statement out.
So QV, Crown have both had experience. CoreJJ as an AD carry, or have all had experience, I believe, against Marin. Although, I have to think about when CoreJJ actually left North America.
Wasn't it? Did he come back in 2016?
Yeah, I was going to say, you're right.
Yeah,
so it's actually just the two. Crown in Summer Split and QV for a whole year. So you would have thought they would have the tales to tell of Marin's SKT.
A whole year of getting manhandled by Marin for QV.
I mean, QV had 2 years of being manhandled by Someday, and it seemed to work out all right at the end.
Yeah, that's true.
And Someday was so offended and so hurt, he went to North America, Kilios.
That's a next level of tilt right there.
Never losing to this guy again. See ya, nerds. Well, this was Marin closing the distance. committed to the flash, and surprisingly, Crown was able to sidestep the Ziggs ultimate. The assist wasn't there. It was that second solo kill, and the build that was so heavily delayed. Feels like the Frozen Mallet will be done by 30 minutes, and then he's pretty much good to go.
But Marin killed him through an exhaust as well. Crown just still couldn't out-damage this cannon.
And that's pre-Frozen Mallet. There's less CC in the kit when you don't have the Frozen Mallet for slows as well. There's no running from Mallet Cannon.
Yep.
Really interesting to see. So now, you know, whenever we see Cannon, maybe this will be the new norm, just because it was a pretty heavy nerf to backload all the damage from the Slicing Maelstrom. It was about bursting opponents in lane, but now it's about continuing to keep them in the AoE after the initial stun, which is so much harder to do.
Nice shock blast from Kuro. Scouts out, finds Haru. Takes a decent chunk off the Graves. And just in time for this Dragon to be spawning. 5 seconds. And that's going to be our third and final Infernal Drake of the game. And I mean, if Samsung are able to net that for themselves, Afreeca, they've been inching back into this, but it's going to make it considerably more difficult. They are able to find it. Core JJ goes low. Kuro's trying to find a way to go in. Haru just waits for the quick draw, is able to jump over the wall, get himself out to safety. And it looks like Samsung Galaxy are going to be able to get away with that Dragon scot-free.
And the important factor is Achilles that sure, they were getting back into the game, but it was all on the top side. It was never on the bot side. They didn't have the pressure to put down a flank ward or really get a lot of information around the Drake. So the Drake RNG really does punish Afreeca, but it was Afreeca's own misplays in the early game to put themselves in this situation. However, give a couple more items to each of these members of Samsung, and 24% extra AD and AP permanently is a big deal.
Well, Rylai's Crystal Scepter completed here for Crown.
Still a good item.
Slow up as many people as he can.
I mean, Rylai's
counteract that Frozen Mallet.
Rylai's is still very powerful outside of edge cases. Champions like Cassiopeia lost a lot with not being able to get 40% slow on Twin Fangs, but if you had AoE abilities, still pretty happy with the new Rylai's, cheaper as well.
See that mid-tier 1 turret going over to Samsung. So all tier 1s have been taken by them, and even so, they still have just a very slight lead of 1.1 thousand. Hasn't really been growing for them. But that triple Infernal Drake is there as Samsung continues to just stack up the items. You can see Marin, though. He's not worried about it. Goes in onto Cuvée with that Slicing Maelstrom. Already has worked him down to about half HP. And you have to expect Cuvée doesn't really have anywhere to go except into the opening arms of his teammates. And Marin, he thinks better of this. Doesn't want to have to use a flash or even cost him his life, so he'll go ahead and peel back. Now Haru getting found by Spirit, popped up, takes a hell of a lot of damage, jumps back to collateral, and he lives a little bit longer than you would expect, but Kramer in the end is able to take him out.
It was actually pretty good communication from Afreeca. They realized that if all the members chased down that kill, someone probably died to AoE from the side of Samsung, so thought they had the kill and went back. Tucson.
Ruler throws out the volley. There we go. Finds the kill onto Tucson. Nicely done.
That said,
has to use the flash.
Yeah, does have to swap his flash. Was not ideal. And there is the meanwhile caveat of Marin taking that bot lane turret. Doesn't have the mallet. Doesn't have the Blade of the Ruin King. So for now, can't chase down and kill the Maokai, but is dictating to the Maokai, and perhaps that's enough.
It seemed to be. Gold lead has been equalized here. See how Afreeca want to keep approaching this advance. His Baron is going to be something that pops up relatively soon here. 26 minutes on the clock. And we can see right at the moment, Samsung do have some decent coverage, some wards in the river, now one in the pit, and on the backside of it inside the jungle for Afreeca Freecs.
But you look at the items, and now the items have been hit where Samsung cannot make another mistake, and that's not death timers like you usually talk about. I see a duel up top.
Well, yeah, Crown. Throwing out the thread volley. Kuro's able to make it out of range in time, uses that Ghost Blade for that additional movement speed. TP was completed by Cuvée. Now Samsung, do they just go for this? They do have unique vision of the pit.
Got the exclusive vision. Tucson will drop a ward.
Gonna start this one up. Marin has the teleport. Doesn't really have a flanking position that he can come from. Throw out the Weaver's wall. It's really only
risky stuff here.
Bombs coming through. Oh. Baron picked up by Haru, and a good Night Spirit goes into the pit to try to come up with the steal. Just unable to do so. Marin, does he want to commit for this? Has a Slicing Maelstrom, has the flash, but looks like thinks better of it, would just be too risky. And Samsung taking a risk of their own, starting up that Baron, but they walk away with it and they get a kill on the exit.
But just consider where this game was 5, 6 minutes ago, before those solo kills, it felt like Samsung had it in the bag, and now they have to take a very, very big risk. They knew that Rek'Sai would come in. There's no suppression. He was going to get over the wall, and it was a crapshoot. Anyone could have got the Baron. It ended up going over to Samsung, and sure, they look good, they'll feel good about the reward, but that's the sort of thing where a coach will look at this game and say, this should never have had to happen. You should have closed out the game much earlier, just like Afreeca Freecs was so good at doing in game 1. But mistakes from Samsung forced them into a desperate situation, even with 3 Infernal Drakes in the bank.
Well, they go for the Hail Mary play, and it does work out to their favor, but they're not out of the woods yet.
I mean, a Hail Mary will win you games, it'll lose you games, but it's the sort of thing you want to eliminate, because if you never have to go for a Hail Mary, then you're a much happier team.
Oh yeah, for sure. You can see using that Baron buff, they get a lot of damage in onto this turret already. Ruler is about a shot blast away from going down. Oh, maybe it'll take one more. And with that hit, Samsung, they're like, okay, maybe we shouldn't siege up against this J6 combination. They will back off.
Well, it's auto-attack party in the top lane. Marin doesn't have the Blade of the Ruin King, so killing Cuvée, especially after he face checks and takes 30% of his health, wasn't a possibility. Talia can weave his wall. Speaking of, Ash Arrow hits
Ash
first.
Arrow does come through. Crown pops him back. That's going to be Slicing Maelstrom thrown down. Lateral damage in over the wall. Nice timing on the Zhonya's by Crown. And the kill will be picked up by Core JJ in the end. Blue buff does get handed over to the Talia. So Marin maybe just getting a little too zealous. And he will die.
It's actually a really deceptive Ash Arrow as well. Went through the terrain as Spirit does get the smite onto Haru.
Oh yeah, Haru able to flash away so he doesn't get popped back in by that satchel charge.
So many skill shots.
Oh. Full time over the wall. Haru will be able to limp his way out. Gets the recall off, and now Samsung going to be grouping up in mid, trying to siege out this turret. Marin's going to be up in about 10 seconds. Wave being pushed up in the bottom lane as well by Crown, so they have their options as to where they want to shove.
And speaking of waves, they actually used a lot of different ranged wave clear abilities. Misfortune bullet time, even from support. The Ziggs ultimate to try and secure a kill they didn't get. So despite having good wave clear, they are still going to lose objectives, and Kramer...
Ash Arrow comes through, Weaver's Wall pushes them away from the turret, however, not necessarily what they wanted for the kill, but that will open them up for this turret take. 5th one for Samsung, finally stretching a bit of a gold lead. 4.4 thousand, still not enough to write this game off for Afreeca Freecs. Just 30 minutes in, and it's not a whole lot of gold separating them. If Afreeca Freecs can come up with that one crucial fight, the Slicing Maelstrom on top of 4 or 5 members of Samsung, they very well could win this.
But they need to make that sort of a play, because it's a big engage play, and their comp's really not about engage. Kennen can do it, is tanky, so won't die instantly. Doesn't have the Zhonya's engage, but still has engage options. But if Kennen doesn't just get it done, if you throw out one of the Weaver's Wall or an Ash Arrow, you don't even need to go for the pick. You don't need to commit to it. You just take the turret. Isn't so much that Afreeca can do. They have to all walk behind because they're fairly squishy on the whole. So instantly, 3 inner turrets go down for Afreeca, and Samsung still in control despite having a wayward 20 to 30 minute phase.
I mean, this is just good, decisive play from Samsung off the backside of that Baron. We'll see what they decide to do now that the buff is, expired. This is where things get, questionable. You need to still be making these clear-cut calls. Dragon's not up for a little bit longer. So where do they want to go from here? Do they just buy time, wait things out for another objective to spawn? Or do they try to push their advantage?
I think Samsung are really in a comfortable position. The 3 Infernal Drakes and all the item scaling they're getting makes them comfortable. Right now, no Drake is spawning, no Baron is spawning, at least in the immediate future. And the rest of the objectives are really tough ones. It is possible for Afreeca to put down a lane wall that isn't swept and look for a Marin flank. It is possible to get engages when teams try to push on, specifically to break the inhibitor line. So for now, Samsung, I think, honestly, have to wait for the Baron and then lure Afreeca away from the comfort of their inhibitor turrets and into the open where they thrive. 2 minutes till Baron comes. Afreeca then trying to push out, put down vision. It's about Samsung clearing any and all Baron vision, pushing up some walls of themselves and punishing an overextension.
Samsung now just maybe waiting for a pick. Haru sitting in the brush in the river. Ruler ready to go with that crystalline arrow.
I don't know if that's the place to wait for a pick. The Baron vision is the only thing that Afreeca can get really angsty about pushing in, not so much the river, especially when they have no information around at all.
Well, for now, Afreeca just going to be playing back. They do have a trifecta of wards around the Baron pit. Nothing inside at the moment.
Don't have a lot of spot checking either. They only have the scrying orb from Ziggs. Couple of control wards, but 2 in the inventory, maybe even 3, can't tell on our monitors, quite small, from the Misfortune.
Surprised Kuro hasn't swapped over to the scrying orb.
Dash arrow goes wide. They want Tucson.
Oh, yeah, Kube, he's going to flash forward, finds Tucson. He just gets destroyed. Ruler
Spirit's
coming
all
up with
alone.
that kill. Spirit able to tunnel out so he doesn't get popped up by the Zyra ultimate, but now just really nowhere to go. Kube is cutting off his retreat, and looks like he's just going to go down. Crown picking up that kill now, 10-4 on the board for Samsung. Marin can't even try to continue that push in the bottom lane, just gets the wave moving, has to come back to base to try to defend these inhibitor turrets. Baron's still 20 seconds out. Tucson will be up, Spirit will not.
You have to consider the people that are alive are Jace and Ziggs, so the inhibitor turrets isn't actually the big call. It is the Baron that Samsung now have a litany of wards to potentially look for a flank. Cuvée could even recall at this point and come in with the home guards. Spirit will spawn about 10 seconds after the Baron, but let's have a look for tunnels. Right now, it doesn't really have any offensive tunnels, just tunnels around his own inhibitor turret, so he can't get close. So the smite won't be here. That doesn't mean Afreeca can't try a contest.
Yeah, the shock blast doesn't come through from Kuro. Kramer only able to throw in a satchel charge, and the Baron goes down already. So much damage on this Samsung roster to be expected.
Marin's there
with that Infernal Drake, that triple stack, and yeah, Marin coming to the back line, almost takes out Ruler. He's able to make it out with his life. Marin still holding onto the flash, is able to exit safely. The rest of Samsung not able to collapse in time to come up with that exit kill. But the Hex Drinker from Ruler, definitely a heads-up pick for him, keeping him alive against that cannon.
I don't even know how Marin got into that brush. It wasn't a teleport. He just skillfully evaded all the wards. I guess we'll see it
He's
in
the bottom
future.
lane now. This is when Tucson dies.
So this is when Tucson dies. There's still another 30, 40 seconds before the Baron was started. We saw that the timers between Spirit's life and the Baron buff were about 12 seconds the Baron would spawn before, so Spirit had nowhere to go. He knew Cuvée would cut him off. I guess the percentage chance of living was still higher if he went towards his own base.
Oh boy, Spirit though, he gets caught by that Enchanted Crystal. Arrow Ruler, with the help of Cuvée, take him out. And now Baron empowered minions coming down the mid and bottom lanes. You have to think that Samsung will be able to take an inhibitor at least. With 35 seconds left on Spirit, big bomb coming out from Kramer, able to knock Ruler down. Shock Blast doesn't connect, however, and Marin almost dies. Collateral damage not enough to finish him off.
Yeah, the burn from the red smite also not enough either, but the ult's been used. Ziggs has to move back because he sees Cuvée, so finally the base is broken by Samsung.
Still really risky for both Crown and Ruler to stick around here. One Shock Blast from Kuro will take them out. And he line it up. Looks like Samsung are going to opt to back off. Big hit comes through onto Cuvée. And Samsung will go ahead and retreat as a team.
They got their objective. Breaking the base is so damn difficult to do against Jace, Ziggs. Even the Misfortune support and Kennen are pretty helpful in wave clear as well. Objective done, and it does feel like Marin's kind of a solo mission this particular game and trying to create pressure and trying to make things happen. His 2 kills were both solo kills against the tide of what was looking even early as a pretty inevitable Samsung victory. And despite those heroics, not going to be enough in this particular game unless we see a couple of catastrophic mistakes in a row by Samsung.
Yeah, and I mean, it's been complete polar opposite here for Spirit. Been really struggling in this game as opposed to the first 0-4-2 on the Rek'Sai. But I mean, overall, Afreeca Freecs just haven't been able to net any kills. That 0-4-2 is 50% kill contribution. And now, Triple Infernal, shredding through that Elder Drake, and that's a massive buff to AD and AP coming through. 30 additional seconds on the buff.
36% more AD and AP for that extra time. Oh boy, everyone's doing a lot of damage, and not even to mention it's 4 stacks of true damage as well,
474 AD on Ruler at the moment.
Yep, he's pretty big. Nothing else to say right there. Hasn't been the
15 on Crown with the Talia, and he doesn't even have a Rabidons yet.
Hasn't been the ruler show by any means, but with those sort of buffs, you're feeling pretty good. And even their jungler is a damaged jungler, so Graves got a lot of value out of the Infernal Drake.
I mean,
4 out of 5.
You say it hasn't been the ruler show, but he's been hitting these arrows time and time again, setting up for these kills, and hasn't died. 3-0-4 on the Ashe. And now Kuve just going to push forward, tank up the turret. Be that big, unstoppable, unbreakable wall for Samsung, and they will knock down their first inhibitor in the bottom lane. They can wrap right around to the mid lane and take their second.
Yeah, Afreeca, they've got wave clear, but doesn't matter so much when they all have to move 1,000 units away from structures. Oh. Another seismic shove. Crown has been clinical with that ability throughout this game, and yep, Samsung just ready to ink in that W. Definitely been in pencil for at least 20 minutes, but the ink's ready. It's going to be a Samsung victory, and best thing about that is we're going to get a game 3, Achilles.
That we are. Unless they screw up terribly.
A couple of times, maybe.
In the meantime, Marin has Flame Horizon Kuve. I don't think Kuve is too bothered by that.
We're getting towards the more and more, most inconsequential Flame Horizon of all time. You might say, oh, is that Marin being in business for himself? Has that been at the cost of his team? But I think he's done exactly what he needed to in this game. You know, there are definitely games. Oh, Kuro's hit by a max range.
Another arrow yet again. Ruler doing some work with these long-range arrows. Helps get the kill. Spirit almost goes down. Haru with his Graves pumping out the damage. And with Kuro gone, there's that big poke potential to try to stave off Samsung. It's really just going to be on Kramer.
All right, Marin, it's not going to be a victory, but you might go in the history books because you may be the first cannon to ever build Last Whisper. Don't think that's ever been done. Even the AD cannons go tank most of the time. So you got that going for you.
Well, he's inventing new builds with which to poison solo queue. That's going to be the Weaver's Wall thrown out. Haru, a little bit cut off from the rest of his team, but I think he's kind of comfortable with that one as he's already almost killed Marin. Ruler takes a big burst of damage as Kramer throws out his ultimate, but the turret is going to fall nonetheless. Samsung will not be dissuaded. Still 10 seconds left on Kuro. Should be 3 inhibs down. Don't think they'll stick around. Most members are around 50% HP, so they should have to peel back one last time before they go for the throat.
Yeah, I mean, Samsung's just playing the controlled game. Marin has been trying to create pressure himself as he almost solo kills Haru, but kind of flashes into Crown as well. That was maybe a sign that Marin's not so happy right now.
Yeah.
Talking about people getting the strap out. I think Marin might be getting the strap out this game.
The tilt could be real.
Let's see game 3.
Yep.
Afreeca looked really good when they were winning. I don't think they've been awful when they're behind this game. This was kind of Samsung playing it out correctly. And
I mean, it was pretty close until like the third Infernal Drake came through, or that first Baron actually was really the defining moment for Samsung to start really turning on the heat.
A lot of teams have been able to shot call well when they're winning and fall away or tilt when they're losing. So game 3 will be very interesting to learn, finally, about where Afreeca Freecs lie on that.
Oh, Ruler goes low. Shock Flash from Kuro still does a lot of damage. Ooh. Bombs there from Kramer.
That was through heal. It looked like it didn't do a lot of damage. Trust me, it did.
Still has the Hex Drinker, I think. So still might not have been able to kill him.
Yeah, it looks like the Hex Drinker is available from the buff bar, although, no, it isn't because the Fervor ability was active. So that was through Hex Drinker and heal.
Oh, wow. Okay. Got the double pop for his troubles, but Samsung, they'll get a free Baron. Ruler heal up off of that. And now with 3 inhibs down, 3 waves of super creeps pushing forward, they should be able to close out this game here. Took them considerably longer than Afreeca Freecs in game 1, for 11 minutes longer at the moment, but doesn't really make it any less convincing.
Samsung did drop games against the likes of Hongdu Monster as well, so haven't had a perfect series in a while. This one will join that as well. There's the arrow on Kuro.
Yep. Takes a big hit, but Ruler has to flash away. Bomb won't connect onto him. He's able to make his way out, but Spirit trying to flash out to safety. Can't do so. Kuve pops him with the ultimate. He goes forward. Looks like he's going to get that Guardian Angel pop for his troubles, but the Nexus towers have been falling. Nexus now exposed. Several members of Samsung are low. This is the Alamo for Afreeca Freecs to see if they can pull something off. Mar tries to go for the TP into the back line, but realizes, I don't really have enough time for that. Cancels it, but it doesn't matter. Samsung, they still come up with the win. 14-4 in the end, 14,000 up. And they will take us to game 3.
Zigspot and the Afreeca Freecs no longer undefeated at Kilios. Both of them were quelled in one fell swoop in this game. Pretty standard Samsung game. They played their normal style, although maybe we have to mention that it's a pretty standard Samsung game with a new jungler. This wasn't Ambition. Ambition continues to go without a victory in LCK so far this season, and you'd have to expect Haru will continue and retain his spot for the third and final game. It's in the best of Afreeca. That one got away from them. Really interested to see our third game because, sure, at the end of the season, it might not be a big victory of who took down Afreeca or Samsung on this day, but I think confidence is going to be a very interesting thing to examine on the Afreeca side because they would have been on cloud 9, no pun intended, after game 1, and who's to say where they are after game 2?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, we saw how tightly the jungle pool was pinched in that set, and Haru still looks very comfortable on the Graves. An older pick, but he makes it work. The camp out on Marin really helping Kuve get ahead in that matchup and be able to maintain his level of play in that game.
The Ruler's feeling the heat. I think we all are, even though it's cold in Seoul. Let's see who can take game 3.